Taylor Walker from the Adelaide Crows, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Shannon Hearn from the West Coast Eagles.
This is Nathan Jones from the Melbourne Football Club.
Phil Davis from the GWS Giants.
It's Brad Avery from the Port Adelaide Football Club, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Number 38 in the 50 most relevant for 2019's fantasy football year. For some, could be a shock. But I want to talk about why. I've got Josh Corbett, the new Gold Coast Sun, inside the 50 most relevant. If you haven't caught up with the players that we've revealed so far, you can go and check out the articles at coachespanel.tv, as well as going back through iTunes and Spotify to be able to listen to all the podcasts of the players revealed thus far. To talk about Josh Corbett, I've got Jimmy on the line. Hello, mate.
Hello, MJ. Hello, listeners. How are we going?
Mate, I'm pretty keen to talk about Josh Corbett. He was one of those players plucked from the state-based leagues, given the AFL Commission's you've been so bad, let's try to help you out rules that were given. But I think Corbett possesses something that other state-based league players may not. I think there's one other that does, but he possesses something that others don't, and that is, I believe, at least in January, I believe he's in the Gold Coast Suns' best 22 clearly. He's 22 years old and he's priced at a basement rookie price, which is fantastic, at 123,900 in Supercoach, 170,000 in Fantasy, and 157,900 in Dream Team. That was always one of the questions we had entering into this preseason, wasn't it, Jimmy? Is these state-based players that were plucked through the commission rules, what were they going to be priced at? And luckily for us as fantasy coaches, they've been priced at the lowest possible range.
Yeah, no, absolutely, very handy. It's and it's always a bit of an unknown. Some of these guys' relevance is very dependent on their price because if we're honest, Corbett's he'll be great and he'll fill his role very nicely, but he's not Buddy Franklin and he's not going to average 95 for us. So being priced at this lower end means that if he does only average in the 50s, that's plenty enough to make us some money.
Yeah, I think so. If you look back at his VFL season last year, he was one of the best contested marks in the competition. He averaged 7.6 marks a game before an eye injury prevented any more appearances that year. But from his 9 matches, I know it's not a lot, but 9 is enough to give us a body of work to be able to judge his season on. He scored 22 goals. He won the Forthgall Round Mitchell Medal, which is the most promising young talent in the VFL. And then the other key weapon to his footballing arsenal, outside of that strong contested marking, is his aerobic capacity. Not something you normally associate with a guy of his height and size, but he averaged 14 kilometres per game. Not bad for a guy who's 190 centimetres tall and 90 kegs big. This guy has some wheels and this guy can clunk a grab. Important for a football team that has just lost someone who we revealed earlier in the 50 most relevant, Tom Lynch. He's departed the club. They now have a clear vacancy inside forward 50, and I think he fills it. Because outside of a developing tall in Peter Wright, the occasionally fit Sam Day, and kind of some X factor in Aaron Young, they really lack avenues to goal and compelling options inside forward 50. I think Corbett fills a role in that spot and an avenue to goal and an inside forward 50 target straight away for the Suns.
Yeah, he definitely does. And the benefit too with him playing alongside Wright and Day when they're both fit is that he's not going to be the number one target either. So it's not like he's coming from a VFL level and suddenly he's standing alongside the best fullbacks in the game. He's going to be getting the second or third key defender, and with that aerobic capacity he's got, he'll be able to run off them on regular enough occasion that he'll get some opportunities. So it's it could well be a decent weapon for them.
Yeah, look, he's got, like I've mentioned, that really strong contested marking presence about him. He's also got the aerobic capacity to be working off your opponents, like you suggested. So there's multiple ways Gold Coast could choose to use him. They could certainly use him as that number 2 tall forward, inside forward 50. Yes, pushing up outside of the 50, verging up to, kind of the half forward, up through the wings and kind of letting him kind of not go past, the sort of halfway mark of the ground and use him as a number 2 forward. Alternatively, they may choose to look at lending him to maybe something like I know most clubs have a link-up forward, maybe similar to Adelaide's Tom Lynch, because he's got the aerobic capacity to do it. Maybe he could be used as that kind of third tall link-up player. Yes, capable of taking contested marks inside 50s, but also maybe an avenue to link up, their run and gun that the Suns certainly do seem to have. And maybe the new rules, of the 6-6-6 at starting bounces, perhaps that's going to play into the favour of all our key forwards. Well, that and also now they're allowed to use hands in the back in those kind of one-on-one contested markings. These are certainly things that go into the favour of Josh Corbett, not just getting what I think is clear job security, but potential scoring ceiling about him.
Yeah, I agree completely. I was going to mention those new rules, and I know we're talking them up in a big way, and we've covered it on a number of occasions now with Danaher and Lynch and others, but and we may be overstating it. It may not change that much, but I certainly think it creates that opportunity for them that there should be a little more supply. And I mean, that's why the AFL have done it. They want more goals being kicked, and they want them being kicked by the big forwards. I think. And that's only going to be a good thing for us in terms of what they're going to be able to do in their fantasy scoring as well.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago we talked about not just a few key forwards, but also we kicked off the 50 most relevant with Harley Bennell. And then he decided to go and get booted out of a pub the same time, which was awesome. But one of the reasons Harley was there, and now why Josh is in the 50, is they possess something that not every cheap option has. And again, it's my personal subjective opinion, but I think he's a lock in their best 22. There's no point having a cash cow that can score well, that's not in the side for you, consistently week in and week out, generating cash for you. I think Josh Corbett is clearly inside their best 22. In December, he signed a 4-year contract extension, locking himself to the club up until 2022. So regardless of, what you think of the club's inability to retain quality talent long term, you don't sign a player up before they've even done a month's worth of training at your club, who isn't a part of your current and future long-term plans. There's an opportunity in their list right now, and clearly he's setting a standard at training that they're happy to do it. And from the games I've seen of him at VFL level, this guy's a warrior. He's a competitor. He'll give them a target. Every single opportunity, he will run all day for a guy that's 190 centimetres. I think he's going to smash it. I think he's going to set himself a nice spot in the AFL and at Gold Coast. And while I don't think he's a premium or even, like someone they're like, yeah, he's going to average 70 or 80, he doesn't have to do that. You're paying under 200,000.
You didn't clarify that, I was going to.
Yeah.
I think you went on a bit of a hype run there, MJ, and I know you love the kid, but he's great, and he will do well. And as I say, I think he will play regular footy this year, which is the number one thing we need out of cash cows. But yeah, I think we temper our expectations a little on his scoring, as you just got in there before I interrupted. And and look, if he does only get 50s and 60s, that's plenty good enough to warrant picking him in your starting side. Yeah, if he's getting 60 week in, week out, or more likely, if he's getting 31 week and 85 the next, and he's averaging 60,
that's fine.
That's all you need. Time it, sell him at his peak, and you'll make some good money.
Yeah, look, I think there's clear role, clear scoring potential. Like any key forward, he does require goals to boost that up. But, a couple of mark, kick, goal, all of a sudden he's halfway there. If he does that 1 or 2 games, goals a game, he's kind of halfway there to scoring enough for you to be a last on-field forward potentially, or at worst, your emergency bench cover that's making you some cash. So while I don't have a crystal ball, and neither am I a part of the Gold Coast Suns selection committee, it seems pretty apparent to me when you look at their list, you look at the needs of their side, and then the skill set and the reason that Corbett's been recruited. I can see him sitting inside their best 22, and as such, I think, and the fact that of his pricing, I think he's going to be one of those really highly owned forwards for us in 2019 as a cash cow. Let's talk drafts, and this will be the shortest one we've ever done.
Yeah, not relevant in drafts, I don't think. I don't think he's going to score. And we are crystal balling. It is only January, and he might well surprise us. But I think coming in at this point, I don't think any of us expect him to average in that mid-70s at a minimum to make him worth being bench cover even. He'll have some high ceiling about him if he gets on a decent run on a team and kicks 5 or 6 in a game. He could well score 100 every now and then, but it's not going to happen often enough to average it well enough to make him worth owning, I think, in a draft. In a keeper, I don't mind the idea of snagging him with a very late pick just to sit on your bench and develop for a year if you've got a pretty deep list.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, he signed a 4-year deal. The Suns have got a lot of faith in him coming through. And he is that type of player that if he can develop to be like Adelaide's Tom Lynch or that sort of character, then he may well come to average enough over the journey. But I wouldn't be looking at it being in a position where you'd need to ever have him on field in 2019 at this point.
No, I think so. Coming back to, how he's going to start the year as a player, this is just the opening 5 or 6 rounds for the Gold Coast Suns. Round 1 against St Kilda. Not known for having, they've got tall defenders, but, there's then Fremantle in round 2. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Round 2's Fremantle. Round 3, the Western Bulldogs. Round 4, they play Carlton. All of a sudden, it's sounding pretty inviting so far.
If I didn't know better, I'd almost think the AFL wanted the Suns to win a few games.
You'd think so. Probably the first really difficult game for Gold Coast in terms of how much they're going to impact the scoreboard and kind of the quality of defensive unit they come up against is probably round 5 against the Adelaide Crows over at Adelaide Oval. But by then... Yeah, thanks, mate. But by then, he's 4 weeks into his cash generation. For Dream Team and Supercoach, he's already had 2 price bumps. For AFL Fantasy, given his price point and the weekly price changes, he's almost done his job for you before he gets to round 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a keeper league too, if you're so inclined, his currency has gone up a fair bit to that stage, and someone might be prepared to take him off your hands. And if you can make any sort of a profit on a kid like that you're picking up as your very last pick or off the waivers after the draft, then that's a win in my book.
Yeah, I think so too, man. Hey, I appreciate your thoughts today as we've talked about Josh Corbett.
Anytime, pleasure.
If you want to go and check out the article, it is online now at coachespanel.tv. And if you want to go back and look through the 40s or at Seb Ross at number 39, you can go and do that at coachespanel.tv. All your links to pledge and become a supporter of the Coaches Panel by joining our Patreon are there. And you keep downloading, streaming and subscribing to these podcasts every single day. Brand new content, podcasts and articles of the 50 most relevant. There's so much value for us in 2019 for fantasy coaches, and tomorrow I've got a ripper for you.